Woman is nature's most brilliant deception, beautiful, essential, and unstoppable. A sentence like a dagger, sharp enough to cut through centuries of polite lies. It doesn't just provoke, it stings, it unsettles, it leaves a mark. But behind this line is not just anger, not just bitterness. There's philosophy. The quote is often thrown around like a weapon online, a Nietzschean meme. But the truth is, before Nietzsche ever said it, someone else did the heavy thinking. A man who shaped Nietzsche's entire view of life. A man who refused to decorate reality with comforting illusions. His name was Arthur Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer was the philosopher who didn't believe in happy endings. He thought love was a trap. Life was a trap. And that women were nature's most perfect tool, not because they were malicious, but because nature had designed them as the purest expression of its will to survive. This is not a video to cancel difficult ideas. This is a journey into the mind of a man who stripped life to its raw skeleton and stared at the uncomfortable truth. So if you're ready to hold up the mirror to your own desires, let's dive into the dark brilliance of Schopenhauer's world. Arthur Schopenhauer didn't write to comfort anyone. He didn't care about uplifting humanity or giving people hope. He wanted truth, cold, merciless truth. He believed life wasn't fair, wasn't logical, and definitely wasn't peaceful. Underneath everything we call morality, society, or dreams, he saw a single hidden engine driving it all, a force he named the will. But don't confuse this with your personal willpower. This isn't about discipline or determination. The will is not yours. It doesn't belong to any individual. The will, according to Schopenhauer, is an invisible force inside all living things. It exists in a tiger stalking its prey, in a tree stretching toward the sun, and in a human falling in love. Its single purpose? To keep life going. To survive. To grow. To reproduce. It doesn't care if you're happy. It doesn't care if you succeed. It doesn't care about right or wrong. It only wants life to continue. And here's the truly painful part: humans are its tools. We believe we're free. We think we choose our careers, our partners, our dreams. But Schopenhauer said we are puppets pulled by invisible strings, dancing to the will's tune. Even our deepest emotions, love, anger, ambition, are not fully ours. They are strategies used by the will to keep life moving. Once you see life this way, his darker ideas about love and women start to make sense. Schopenhauer believed life is a pendulum swinging between pain and boredom. When you want something and don't have it, you suffer. You feel pain, longing, hunger. You tell yourself, if I just get this one thing, I'll finally be happy. Then you get it. For a moment, it feels like bliss. The desire is fulfilled. But soon, the satisfaction fades. The joy dulls. Boredom creeps in. And then, you start wanting something else. This is the cycle: desire, pain, satisfaction, boredom, new desire. And the will loves this. Because as long as you're chasing, you are serving life itself. The will doesn't want you at peace. It wants you moving, reproducing, surviving, chasing. Think about love. Falling in love feels magical, like destiny. But Schopenhauer would say it's the will whispering in your ear, making sure you reproduce and keep the species alive. Passion fades, flaws appear, and the cycle continues, because that's the design. So where do women come into this picture? According to Schopenhauer, woman is the will in its purest, most direct form. Not because she's cruel or manipulative, but because nature built her as the guardian of life. Her body, emotions, and instincts are perfectly tuned to the will's mission, to continue the species. While men may chase grand dreams, write books, or die for abstract ideals, women are grounded in life's core needs: home, security, children, stability. This doesn't mean women are shallow. In Schopenhauer's view, this is power. It's practical, emotional, and instinctive power. A woman doesn't need to fight the will because she is the will. She carries life forward through birth, care, and emotional bonds. She is the bridge between nature's invisible force and the real world. This is why Schopenhauer said women hold a different kind of dominance not through reason or strength, but through biology, emotion, and survival instinct. Whether men realize it or not, women are nature's most unstoppable tool. Man, on the other hand, is the anomaly. Schopenhauer believed men are the only creatures capable of saying no to the will. A man can step outside the cycle of survival. He can suffer for things that don't help him live or reproduce truth, beauty, justice, or art. A man can write a book no one asked for, paint a picture the world doesn't understand, or even die for an idea. That ability to resist the will is both his curse and his greatness. Because once a man wakes up to this truth, once he sees that his desires are not truly his own, he can begin to choose differently. He can rebel. He can seek meaning beyond survival. But awareness comes with a heavy price. A man who rejects the will feels isolated, burdened, and often tormented. He sees through the game of life and love, and that knowledge can be both liberating and crushing. Schopenhauer's ideas are not easy to hear. They are uncomfortable, raw, and often cruel. But they also expose the hidden mechanics of life: why desire never ends, why satisfaction is temporary, and why the dance between men and women is so magnetic, yet so painful. Woman, to him, is not a villain. She is nature's masterpiece, the perfect servant of the will. Man, to him, is not a hero. He is a restless rebel, cursed with the ability to see the trap. And maybe that's why Nietzsche, his student in spirit, called woman God's second mistake, because in her, the will is unstoppable, and in man, the awareness of it can become unbearable. The question Schopenhauer leaves us with is this: once you see the trap, will you keep playing the game, or will you dare to step outside it? Not because he's stronger, but because he can say no. That's what makes man different. And what does he have to say no to? Romantic love. The thing we are told is the most beautiful part of life. The thing our books, movies, and songs worship like a god. But according to Arthur Schopenhauer, the philosopher who stripped life of all its illusions, romantic love is a trap. A trick. A biological illusion dressed up as magic. We think we are choosing love, but love is choosing us. Or rather, the will, that invisible force inside every living being, is using us. Think about the first time you fell in love. Your heart raced. Your stomach fluttered. You couldn't stop thinking about them. It felt personal, magical, like the universe had written a secret just for you. But Schopenhauer would whisper in your ear, "This isn't love. This is nature using you." Behind the fireworks and the butterflies, it's not you choosing, it's the will. A force older than morality, older than humanity itself. Its only mission: keep life going. Men, Schopenhauer said, are drawn to youth, softness, and beauty. Not because they're shallow, but because those traits signal fertility, a body capable of creating life. Women, on the other hand, are drawn to strength, power, wealth, and status. Not because they're gold diggers, but because nature designed them to seek the best protector and provider for their future children. Romantic love, in this view, is not freedom, it's biology in disguise. The poetry, the soulmate stories, the candlelit nights, they're just costumes. Nature dresses up its reproductive strategy in something that feels spiritual so that we don't notice the trap. And once the will gets what it wants, a child, the spell fades. The passion dies. The fireworks vanish. And suddenly, what once felt like destiny now feels like duty. Anyone who's seen a marriage shift from passion to routine knows this feeling. At first, it's fire and obsession. Then, slowly, it turns into survival, support, bills, schedules, responsibilities. To Schopenhauer, this wasn't a failure of love. This was love's true nature all along. Because for the will, mission accomplished. Life continues. And that's why he called love a beautiful prison. It looks like freedom. It feels like happiness. But behind the bars is the same old law of nature: you are not your own. You belong to life itself. This philosophy leads to Schopenhauer's most feared idea, his view of marriage. He didn't just dislike marriage. He feared it. To him, marriage was the ultimate trap, a contract not between two souls, but between two tools of the will. A woman might marry for love, but unconsciously, she is securing protection for herself and her future children. That's not evil. That's not manipulation. That's nature. And the man? He thinks he's following his heart, chasing bliss. But in Schopenhauer's eyes, he's surrendering everything: his freedom, his focus, his mission in life. All for a feeling he never truly owned, a desire planted in him by the will. Once the marriage fulfills its biological purpose, the illusion of eternal love fades, leaving the man tied to duty. He has been used and nature moves on. Brutal? Yes. Cold? Absolutely. But for anyone who has seen a relationship shift from passion to routine, it rings disturbingly true. But behind all this icy philosophy, there is a wound. Before he became the dark philosopher of Europe, Arthur Schopenhauer was just a boy with a mother he couldn't reach. Her name was Johanna Schopenhauer. She was brilliant, independent, and admired in high society. A celebrated writer who hosted literary salons full of the era's greatest minds. But to young Arthur, she was cold and distant. Where he craved warmth, she offered criticism. Where he sought love, she gave indifference. Their letters were full of conflict and pain. She saw him as gloomy and arrogant. He saw her as vain and shallow. Their bond never healed. So when Schopenhauer later wrote about women as manipulative, instinct-driven, or dangerous, he wasn't just speaking as a philosopher, he was speaking as a wounded son. A boy who grew into a man convinced that love would only betray him the way his mother did. His philosophy wasn't born in peace. It was born in pain. If your first experience of love leaves a scar that deep, it can grow into a belief: if my own mother couldn't love me, maybe love itself is a lie. This is why his writings feel sharp, bitter, and unforgiving. It was easier for him to declare all women controlled by instinct than to risk needing love again. Easier to call love a trap than to admit he still longed for connection. What the world saw as misogyny might have been a fear of the power women held over men's hearts, especially the hearts of boys who never felt truly loved. In the end, Schopenhauer wasn't simply attacking women. He was warning men. The danger wasn't women themselves, it was desire. Sexual desire, he said, is the will's sharpest hook. It pulls men into the cycle, making them surrender freedom, purpose, and sometimes their very selves. And the will? It doesn't care if you're happy. It doesn't care if you suffer. It only cares that life goes on. So Schopenhauer leaves us with a haunting question: if love is a beautiful trap, will you keep chasing it, or will you dare to step outside the game? Schopenhauer once said, though not in these exact words, that a man can conquer the world, but he can still lose the war inside himself. A man can be intelligent, disciplined, and sharp. He can wake up with purpose, build a career, a body, a mind, and a life that others respect. He can find a mission that fuels his soul, a direction that makes him unshakable, and walk through life with quiet strength. But then comes the test. A woman enters the picture, not with weapons, not with force, but with something far more powerful. Beauty. Emotion. Seduction. And suddenly, the man who was once a rock begins to tremble. At first, it feels like magic. The world becomes softer, warmer. His focus blurs, not because he's weak, but because nature designed it this way. He tells himself he's following his heart. He believes he's making a free choice. But Schopenhauer whispers, it is not you who chooses. It is the will, choosing through you. Without realizing it, the man begins to trade his missio for a moment of connection. He surrenders his direction for the feeling of love. And slowly, he stops being the man he was. He doesn't notice it at first. He thinks he's in control. But piece by piece, his center begins to dissolve. He becomes needy, orbiting around her instead of standing on his own ground. He adjusts his life, his habits, and sometimes even his dreams, to keep her close. The very traits that made him magnetic, his independence, his clarity, his edge, begin to fade. And here's the cruel twist, she notices. A woman can feel when a man has lost his center. She can sense when he's no longer leading his own life but living for her approval. And slowly, silently, she begins to lose respect for him. Not because she's cruel. Not because she planned it. But because a woman cannot deeply love a man who doesn't have his own gravity. A man without purpose becomes a man she cannot trust. And that is the final tragedy, not that he loved, but that he lost himself in that love. Schopenhauer's message here is as cold as winter, but as clear as ice. Desire is not always your truth. Sometimes, desire is the will using you, pulling your strings for its own agenda. You think you're chasing happiness. But in reality, you're serving life, not yourself. If you're not careful, you can give up everything you've built, your mission, your growth, your freedom, for something that was never truly yours. This doesn't mean you should hate women. It doesn't mean love is evil. Schopenhauer wasn't preaching bitterness, he was giving a warning. A woman can walk beside you, but she should never become your destination. The moment you make her your entire world, you risk losing the man you were born to become. Schopenhauer believed that every man carries two forces inside him, the animal driven by instincts, emotions, and raw desire. The thinker, the part that can see clearly, choose consciously, and resist the pull of the will. Most men never even realize this battle is happening. They think they are free. They think their choices are truly theirs. But in reality, they are often servants of the will, chasing pleasure, lust, and validation, believing it is love. They meet someone and swear she's the one. But according to Schopenhauer, what they've really found is a biological magnet, a living embodiment of nature's survival plan. The will wants life to continue. And it uses romance, desire, and emotion as bait. When a man stops listening to the thinker and lets the animal take over, he starts orbiting around women instead of his mission. He trades purpose for pleasure. He trades clarity for comfort. He trades freedom for the illusion of love. And the result? He becomes weaker, not stronger. Schopenhauer's most brutal message isn't avoid love. It's see through it. He wanted men to understand the difference between a choice made from truth and a choice made under the influence of the will. If you don't see the game, you'll play it blindly. But if you do see it, you gain something rare, freedom. Not freedom from love, but freedom from being controlled by love. And that is the only freedom that matters. So, here is Schopenhauer's challenge to you: don't blindly trust your strongest emotions. Before you surrender to love, before you bend your life around desire, ask yourself, are these feelings truly mine? Or am I just a puppet of the will? This is not about hating women. This is not about running from love. It is about something much harder: knowing yourself. Because the man who truly knows himself cannot be conquered. Not by the will, and not by the illusions it sends his way. Now I ask you, have you ever seen a man lose himself in a relationship? Or maybe you felt it happening to you. If you have, share your story in the comments. This community is here to listen with honesty and respect. And if you've made it all the way to the end of this video, type "will" in the comments. That's our silent code, our way of saying, I see the game now. And I refuse to be a pawn. If this message struck something real inside you, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it.